Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Newark and Sherwood series, a district of 84 civil parishes right in the centre of Nottinghamshire. Come with me as we delve into one of them. Welcome back to Newark and Sherwood, folks. I can't tell you how nice it feels when the sat-nav brings you to your parking spot and there's a village sign right there to start off this episode in the right way. Welcome, for the second time on the channel, to a parish with the name of Oxton. This Newark and Sherwood video is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find a link in the description. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome back to Newark and Sherwood, folks, as we continue our journey up the western side of the district. This is Oxton, and for the second time, we're in a parish with that name. Last time, we were in Selby. The two places are quite different. Selby's version, as you already know, is tiny. Newark's version is much larger and features some actual amenities, like a church, a playground, a village hall, and two pubs. It's notable for having two fords as well, which are both important for different reasons. Oxton is located 5 miles west of the town of Southwell and 10 miles northeast of Nottingham. Much like its Selby counterpart, Oxton's name contains the Old English word for an ox, oxer, which makes this ox farm or settlement. Its history can be traced back to Saxon times. At the time of Doomsday, it was owned by three Channel favourites, the Archbishop of York, Roger de Busley and Walter Danecourt. Since the 16th century, the village has been the family seat of the Sherwood family, although records suggest that they may well have owned land in or around Oxton for some 200 years prior. Among the important members of the family was Robert St Vincent Sherwood, a former High Sheriff of Nottingham and captain in the Royal Navy. He was awarded the Victoria Cross for bravery after his efforts in the Battle of the Barents Sea during World War II. So this is Oxton, and what a lovely place it is. Let's go. Our route begins on Blind Lane at one of Oxton's two current pubs, the Old Green Dragon. I say current because once upon a time the village had four. The others were the Young Oak, the Old Oak and Ye Olde Bridge Inn, and as well as the Green Dragon, it's the latter of those that still remains. The Old Green Dragon is seemingly still popular if this banner outside is anything to go by. It was voted Village Pub of the Year by Camera. A left turn onto Main Street and here's the village shop and post office, named Home Farm Stores. It occupies Home Court. Next, we have a bus stop. The service through Oxton is the number 747, the same one as we saw in Epperson. There's also the Calverton, which runs to Nottingham city centre. Just beyond the bus stop is Oxton Park, which we'll be checking out later. In front of that is a very good information board that tells us all about the village. So there's some interesting bits and bobs on this board, some of which is not on this route. One of the things, if you look right to the top of the map there, you'll see a number 11 on Forest Road. That's this road here. That's a burial mound called Robin Hood Hill, which has never been fully excavated, but it's believed it is a burial mound. But we won't be seeing that. Something which I haven't caught up to now is the old forge, which is number 8 here on this corner where Blind Lane is. I don't know how I missed that actually, because I've literally just walked out of Blind Lane and turned down here, but it's no problem because I have to go back up there later to finish the route off, so I will be catching that towards the end of the video. I'll just give you a little brief of the rest of the route. So I started on Blind Lane. I've come up to where the pubs are just here, and then down Main Street. I'll be going along New Road, Water Lane, and then back up Main Street, catching obviously some of these things, and then heading up to this bit, Windmill Hill, Chapel Lane, etc. And there's a path that links us back to Blind Lane, and that will be the route. And obviously 100 Acre Field is something else that I won't be catching because it's on Southwell Road. I'm not using Southwell Road because it's a long way out of the village and I don't really want to walk that far, to be honest with you.
This is Oxton's former village school. It was built by public subscription in 1870 and educated the village's children for well over 100 years. In 1984 it was forced to close as a primary school, but it's still in educational use. It's now a private infant school. It stands opposite the church. This is dedicated to St Peter and St Paul. Built mainly of Mansfield stone, most of the building dates back as far as the 11th century, and it's seen many structural changes since then. Excavations of its foundations have dated the earliest phase of the church to Saxon times, with the current nave and chancel added during the 12th century. The last major new work on the church was in 1986, when 2 bells were added to its tower, bringing the total number of bells here to 6. Those graves you've just seen all belong to members of the Sherwood family. The church was open, and in here, there's way more things to do with them.
Okay, so here we are then in the church, and we're in the chancel, and would you look at that amazing altar and stained glass and stonework. That is something else, that it really is, and with the light catching it from the left, it just looks spectacular. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick the camera up and we are going to take a wander around the inside of this church and see what we can see. First of all, we have something on the wall here. It's a tablet for Robert Wells. Died in 1932 of wounds received during the Great War. Oh, look at these. These pews here. They've got a nice carving on the back of them. It seems to be some kind of prayer. Let's move on. Down the nave, past the organ. That's quite beautiful, has to be said. I think everything about this church is beautiful, actually. When I walked in, I just went, wow. Some crests up on the walls up there. 2 on that side and 2 on this side, and there's actually 1 above the chancel arch. So if I just come here, you'll see. There you go. There's another tablet on the wall over here, and a funeral bier underneath it, look. There's the tablet, and there is the funeral bier. You don't see very many of those around. Now the tablet is to do with another Sherbrooke. Rear Admiral Rupert St Vincent Sherbrooke, 1901 to 1972, Lord Lieutenant of the County of Nottingham, Registrar of the Most Honourable Order of the Bath. Say not with grief he is no more, but rather say with thankfulness he was. Lots of Sherbrooke references. I mean, obviously you've seen the graves outside. Here's a war memorial with a flag of the British Legion. In this corner we have an octagonal font. Pretty simple, nothing fancy about that. And just behind the font there's another tablet on the wall, and this is to do with Robert Scowthorne, or Scawthorne, in honoured memory of Robert Scowthorne, born in this parish on the 21st of March 1659, baptised in this church on St George's Day of that year, emigrated to Chester County, Pennsylvania, to join William Penn. There he died on the 8th of January 1708, having founded a family now scattered throughout the United States of America. This tablet was erected by his descendants in the Festival of Britain year 1951. And above it, it says the state flag of Pennsylvania was given by the governor of Oxton Church to commemorate his memory. It's above me. If I just step back, you can see, there we are. That's the state flag of Pennsylvania. I'm sure all my American followers will recognise that pretty much instantly. Some of you may even live in Pennsylvania. Okay, there are a few other things in the church. There's a couple of more tablets over there. So we'll just wander across here just before we leave. There's also, look at this. That's to do with the coronation, Queen Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. That's quite nice, isn't it? Another big crest on the wall there. A couple of tablets underneath. The one I was looking at a minute ago is actually in this little area here. This seems to be like a little play area, or maybe a library. Not quite sure what it is. But I was looking at this tablet here. Sacred to the memory of William Sherwood of Oxton, one of His Majesty's Justice of the Peace and for many years chairman of the Quarter Sessions for this county, died on the 17th of November 1831, aged 73. His mortal remains are deposited in the family vault in this church. And just underneath it, there's a painting of the church. Honestly, you could spend all day in here. I probably haven't covered anywhere near as much as what I probably should have done in here, but you know what? I've covered enough, I think.
Now we've turned onto New Road, and our next important feature is a ford. Oxton has two, in fact. There's one here and another on Beanford Lane. This ford is quite shallow. Both this and the one on Beanford Lane used to be popular with the local children who love to play and splash in the crystal clear water. The wooded area close to Beanford Ford is a major source of Dover Beck. All of this water eventually joins with Dover Beck and runs into the Trent. This one, though, is fed by a massive ornamental lake, which was created for Oxton Hall, where the Sherbrooke family lived. It was done by damming a stream. After spending way too much time admiring all these water features, I headed off down Water Lane. The stream follows the road for most of its length. For me, this is where most of Oxton's prettiest houses are located. Some might disagree, but I found them all to be characterful and charming.
Well, this one street, Water Lane, has been absolutely fantastic. I've taken no end of shots of virtually every house on the street. Most of them will come at you in the rest of section. I can't fit them all into one little bit, as you might imagine. Okay, at the end of the road, we'll take a right turn, and then we're sort of looping back on ourselves back to the main road.
Water Lane brings us to Ye Olde Bridge Inn, which stands on the end of Main Street. It's one of a number of interesting buildings on this very road. One building which used to be close to the pub was Oxton's Primitive Methodist Chapel. It was marked on OS maps in the 1920s, but by the 1950s it had disappeared. Some of the buildings are easy to work out what their former uses were. This house, for example, used to be Oxton's police station. The sign on the wall tells you so. Here's the Manor House, which shockingly is not one of Oxton's listed buildings, which I found a little hard to believe. There's also practically no information out there about it. While we're on the subject of listed buildings though, Oxton has a total of 12, most of which are located around this de facto village centre. And both the Manor House and the church can just about be seen together here in one glorious shot looking north towards Oxton Park. Isn't it beautiful?
So the church is now behind me. We've completed a little loop at the bottom of the village, the southern portion of Oxton. Now we're going to head back up to the north, and on the way we're going to catch the village hall and Oxton Park, which are to your left as you look at it on the camera right now.
The village hall now. This was built on land purchased by the parish council. It was built in 1964 after 5 years of fundraising, and it replaced an older temporary building. The village hall stands in front of Oxton Park. Oxton Cricket Club play here. The club may have originally begun as early as the 1850s, although there's only any real evidence that cricket was being played here from the 1870s onwards. Wilfred Flowers, a member of the Nottinghamshire 11 who played the first Australian team to tour England in 1878, used to bring a professional team to Oxton each July during the 1930s. Oxton has a decent little play area as well. Now, I haven't done this for a while. I attempted the adventure trail and this didn't go well. Here's 20 seconds of me wobbling my way across half of it before eventually falling off.
Never goes well, does it, on an adventure trail? Never goes well. Okay, now we're going to turn left out of the park and head back to the area where we began, around the old Green Dragon. And you remember the information board that we saw earlier told us there's some things there that I've yet to catch. One of them is the old forge, and there's an old pump there apparently. So we'll go and find that next, shall we?
So now we've hit Forest Road and you're looking at Oxton's old forge and workshop. This has been a working blacksmith shop since the late 1870s. One of Oxton's Grade 2 listed structures is this petrol pump which is right outside it. It dates from around 1935 and was manufactured by Avery Hardle. Now we go up Windmill Hill. You're looking here at the former Memorial Hall which was built in 1933. Many village activities took place in there. It was built for this adjoining Wesleyan Methodist chapel, which dates back to 1839. The original chapel from 1790 is now a row of farm cottages on Chapel Lane. It seems likely that there was once a windmill on Windmill Hill, but there are no records of its existence as far as I can tell. There is a windmill house though, which dates from 2003. Our last task is to amble along the orchards, which runs into a public footpath that takes us back to the start. I'd say that's time for a special section. Today's special section takes on two things which were not on the route. First of all, the Old Ox Camp. This is situated about 1.5 miles to Oxton's north. It's one of the best remaining examples in Nottinghamshire of ancient earthworks believed to date from the Iron Age. It covers around 4 acres. Robin Hood Hill, as we mentioned back at the information board, lies just to the north of Old Ox Camp and is believed to be a burial mound. The other thing we're highlighting here is 100 Acre Field. This is off Southwell Road. During the 19th century, it was considered patriotic to plant up land with trees to represent battle formations. 100-acre field has blocks of trees which do exactly that. The trees here represent the positioning of the English and French units during the Battle of Waterloo, which took place in 1815. It's one of those quirky British features that not many people know about. To finish with, we're taking a drive down Beanford Lane, and I know what you're thinking, I've just driven down a closed road. Yes, I have, but that was planned. You see, as I mentioned earlier, Oxton has 2 fords. As well as the small ford within the village itself, there's the much larger one which crosses Beanford Lane. It's a much deeper ford and can often get as deep as 1 foot whilst remaining open to all traffic. But regardless of its depth, it does have to be closed once a year. This takes place in March, and as you already know from the intro, this video was filmed in March. So why is it closed, you ask? Well, it's all to do with wildlife, and more specifically, the bufo toad. Beanford Ford crosses a swamp-like area within the trees on both sides of the road. The toads can be found in that area, and closing the ford allows them to cross the road to breed. Now, I also had a big stroke of luck when I got here as well. So in a little bit of a chance meeting, I've just been speaking to the lady who closes Beanford Ford every year. And you can probably just see her just walking off there into the distance to a car on the other side. So that was a bit of luck, because I wasn't expecting that. That was not planned. It was always part of my plan to come here at this time of year when the ford is closed for the reasons I've just explained. But yeah, to find the person who actually closes it is unbelievable, quite frankly. Apparently there's supposed to be some ducks around here. They're usually quacking around the place, according to her, but they're not here at the moment. And really, all you can hear in the sort of environs is just wildlife. You can't hear any traffic because there's no traffic on this road for obvious reasons, and you're far enough away from civilization that you can't hear anything in the distance. So what you get is this lovely, peaceful, quiet sort of aura around the place, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and the same can be said for most of the villages in this part of Newark and Sherwood, especially Oxton. And I do hope you have enjoyed the parish of Oxton. I'm going to move on to my next one here in Newark and Sherwood. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.